has to pay for it? I mean, the national, the government pay for it? Oh, really? That,
So if it's a county road.
right, the county's responsibility, no, they don't have the money.
Or if it's a state road, or if it's a federal road.
Sir, did you not come back in the floodway and get easements from the public entity? Because we had found that they were only on private property, and then, what was it, in the seventies or eighties, Dennis, they came back and got it on the public property, which are the roads and the ditches. See? And I mean, if you had to have the right to flow that water over those roads and through those ditches, and the same condition would be on the property, you did not have the right to destroy the drainage ditches and the public road, if you had to secure an easement to do that.
But they came back and they condemned for $1. They condemned and got those easements on the public utilities or
Right away.
But at the same time, they had to get the easement to flow that water across.
Well, they did, they condemned them.
They just said, we're gonna do it for $1, and here's your dollar.
They went to court.
And so you're left totally back.
That sounds like it to me. I'm not gonna stop there, but yeah, it sounds like that's what they're saying.
Still, wouldn't that be like a trees?
I'm sorry.
If you lose rights, even if it's public property, if you lose the ability to use it, should you be compensated? I mean,
That's what we're saying.
that's constitutional.
But he's saying that, we really have no rights.
Look at this pellet road, and I believe it was 82, when the locals took the Corps of Engineers to court, and we won in lower court and lost at the appellate level. They were telling us, in the decision, that we didn't have a right to challenge the Corps about the operation of the floodway. I don't think any of us do that now. But they also said at the same time, the appellate court, they have the right to flow the land, water across the land. They have the right to destroy your buildings, and all of that. But what they also said in that ruling, if anyone's land is destroyed, then they must pay for it. Now, with Miles, fortunately, as General, I didn't have any land to lose, but there's a lot of people in here that should. But like in Miles, where that land has been destroyed, or L at Rafferty standing over the doorway, I mean, where you saw the big caverns like the Grand Canyon, that land can't be put back and never be as fertile as what it was. But then the Corps tells us, or somebody tells us, that, yeah, we'll come in and that land, let's say appraised at $5,000, which most of it would, we can only pay for half of what it's worth. I'd like to know where that came from. Yeah, we'll buy the land from you, but we'll only give you so much for it. And so we've been told they didn't have the capability of paying full assessed benefits.
I hadn't been told that.
Yeah, I'm not aware of what you've been told in that regard.
I'm just
the
going by
appraisal-
what the court.
Okay, well, I go by what the court tells us too.
Try to.
In terms of the appraisal process, I do know something about that, and our real estate experts follow a very disciplined, usually long drawn-out process that involves comparing all the kinds of standard comparisons that any appraiser would follow, and then generally we go into negotiations with the owner using the basis of the appraisal as a basis for negotiations. That's all I can comment in terms of that.
And that's what I've been told. I don't know where you came with the half.
I am not familiar with the legal history of this, and even if I were, I would not comment on it because, it's outside my area of expertise. My area of expertise is executing a floodway operation, doing the repairs to it, and working with y'all to try to figure out a way to potentially operate it in a different manner that would be more advantageous to everybody.
Two more things I'd like to mention.
Sure, yes, sir.
I don't know how you put the cost, the human cost in the toll.
Yeah, I don't
And I think Kevin Maynard very eloquently went through that on the boat.
Yes, he did.
The second thing is alternative, and I've talked to General Keppel about this when he was here. I've always felt that the Corps felt that this was their baby, they designed it, it was gonna work, and we 37, where there were flaws in this, it worked comment. Also, we can show you some flaws this year using your all data where it didn't work. Now, the overall thing did work, but we think there's a lot of, for lack of a better word, methodology that is flawed. And, you know, we were screaming bloody murder the evening that they blew the center crevasse.
Yeah.
It would not work. There will never be a drop of water go out of that center crevasse. And gentlemen, there never was the first drop.
Are you talking backflow back out after?
I'm talking about, yes, sir, the evacuation of the floodway of that.
Yeah, and Bernie, I guess I'll turn to him because I am familiar with the center crevasse, but there were limitations to the way that operated. The center crevasse did not achieve its full flowage capacity for a variety of reasons. Bernie, you want to comment on the center crevasse issue?
Turn off the camera. I'm in agreement that the inflow outflow number 2 did not achieve how it was designed. Many reasons go to why that happened. The main reason is that the 5,000 foot section, we used a different type of explosive in that section. And when that went off, though it was a clean blast, it merely took off about the top, third or quarter of the levee and did not fracture the levee as it should have. And so there was a lesson learned, or there in terms of that execution of the center crevasse. So go back to your point, and you're right. There was never any outflow out of the center crevasse. It was only inflow, and what made it worse was that it was confined, and it caused enormous amounts of flow through that crevasse that caused this huge scour hole, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So you are correct in terms of that center crevasse did not execute as it should have. If it had gone 5,000 feet, I don't know if it would have ever outflowed or inflowed. I'm not sure, but at least the initial models that we saw before this execution indicated that it would inflow and outflow. But regardless of that, today, that center crevasse did not execute. It was mainly due to the explosives that were used, did not fracture the levee as it was supposed to. That's a fair, honest assessment.
Let me just make a couple other comments about that. This is an important point that I don't think is fully appreciated. I'm not sure I fully appreciate it yet. This is a very unique and complex project for the Corps, executing the floodway operations. It's only the second time in history it's been done, and the first time the technique was very different from the technique that was used this time. Because of the unique nature, the complexity, and the scope and scale of the operation, we really, to have total confidence in the design, needed to have a rehearsal. But you can't do a rehearsal because it's too expensive. You can't do a full-scale rehearsal. We found some things, Bernie and his team found some things, and a lot of details that we could go into, but it's kind of backward-looking, and I'm not sure it's a good use of our time here, but if you want to do that, we'll be happy to go into that. But Bernie and his team learned a lot of lessons on some details that made a difference in terms of executing the operation. If we had fully understood some of those nuances before we went into this, that ended up making a difference in the center crevasse, which is basically, it had an impact on his ability to execute the center crevasse in the time it was designed to do and in the way it was designed to do, then we might have a different conclusion. Our engineers tell us that they believe it would have worked as designed. My experience with our engineers is that they're pretty sharp folks, and they usually get it pretty darn accurate. But we can't go back and recrank history, so we won't know with total certainty. Having said that, I think the big takeaway for us is going forward, the next time that when we rebuild this and however we figure out we're going to operate it for some future event, God forbid whenever that's going to happen. But we will have to have a greater fidelity in our rehearsal process. We won't be able to actually execute it, but we will need to simulate it. I'll personally be looking to our modeling and simulation capability at ERDIC to help us understand that better. And I think we ought to do some more analysis and forensics on that alternative explosives that you used as well. But that's another detail. I hope that answers some of the questions. Please.
And I wasn't present when a lot of these men were. When they used the model down in Vicksburg, wherever it is.
1986.
Okay, thank you, that model did exactly what we said it would do.
That's right.
And it seems to be totally ignored.
Okay, I'm not familiar with it.
Okay, that should be something very interesting for you to look at. We knew when that inflow started what was going to happen to it. It was going to go a few thousand feet, make a left-hand turn, head down through the Maverick County. We feel, and I think we've got the data to prove it, that if you had been successful with that, let's say we got all 5,000 feet,
Okay.
the upper end of New Maverick County would have been looking a whole lot like O'Brien's Ridge. I mean, it would have taken, and they got some severe scouring down there anyway. So that would have made it even worse, and it wouldn't have accomplished much because the flow, the crest had already passed it and everything when that thing blew. I mean, the river was on its way down. So, we get a hole blown in it, having Carroll gotten out of trouble, and over in Fulton County. So we've got some real questions there. Let me mention one more thing and then I'll quit.
I'm going to follow up on that, so I appreciate you pointing that out.
There are alternatives, none of which were looked at.
No, I'm sorry.
None of which were looked at.
Alternatives, okay.
Before. I was very familiar with that study. And that's why we want you to work with us to look at some very different alternatives. And as I was discussing with General Temple, this will happen again, maybe not in my
yeah,
lifetime.
you're right.
It's gonna happen
You're
again.
absolutely
Just
right.
forget that it's not. And I don't think the raising it, continuing to raise levies, I think we're starting to reach a max there.
Yeah.
So these alternatives are very, very important. And I think we need to start fighting floods at much lower levels through bypasses and that type of thing, which General Javelin was very much opposed to, but the Corps has proven that these work. We have a perfect opportunity here to change significantly what happens in the lakes, the areas that you were responsible for, as well up the Missouri River, of Mississippi up to Cape Girardeau. And that's where we would like the time to sit down with who you think's appropriate to show you what we've been working on.
I'd love to do that. Al, who's the right person to take this on?
It would be Chuck and Bob.
Okay.
And I'll talk about that.
So, you want to have them come up here at a separate time to do that, or?
Well, part of, one thing that we are doing is called a system performance evaluation. So, what you're
Yeah.
talking about, all the reservoirs, not just in the Ohio Valley, but northwestern, all the main skins on Missouri, plus all the dams on the Ohio and Kentucky that influence this operation are all going to be assessed. And the levees, the flood walls, all the components of the system. So that's a longer term project that the Corps of Engineers nationally has committed to doing across the entire country. So, and that will, those teams mainly are going to be led from the division. They will be engaging subject matter experts and locals as they do those assessments. So we would be glad to meet with you and get your input and any ideas that you have as we do that system performance evaluation.
should be our primary point of contact on this issue of alternatives for you all?
They only need three of them, I think.
I'm sorry?
The levy districts, the two presidents of the levy.
Okay.
I think.
All right.
Well, there are primarily three districts that are highly involved
Right.
in this,
You want us to work through the
in this
districts?
spillway.
We'll read-
Those three
yeah, I
districts,
got it.
we've all
That's
been
what I
working
needed to know.
together already anyway.
So, Al and I will talk about how to set this up. We'll be in touch with you in the not distant future, about a time in the not distant future to get together and to get your recommendation. I'm trying to get your napkins.
I'm gonna staple all that together.
Good, good. To look at this, because I really want to emphasize this point. The greatest failure that we could possibly have from this point going forward is the failure of imagination. That's my personal opinion. I could be wrong in that, but I don't think so. And so it's really finding a different, the suite of different ideas that probably we can't even imagine in this room here today because we're too close to the problem. That is, somebody's out there that can think of this, that I think is our greatest task and challenge. And I'm going to work, Bernie and I talked about it last night. I'm going to work with our guys. Honestly, I'm not sure we can find it internal to our own agency. And I don't say that because I don't respect and appreciate our engineers. I do. I think they're fantastic. But like I said at the beginning, all of us as human beings are victims. We're enabled, but we're also constrained by our own experiences. And sometimes our experiences unintentionally blind us to opportunities and ideas that we can't consider because it's just not imaginable to us. We need to find people that aren't constrained by our experiences that might be able to imagine alternative approaches, and we need to fully evaluate and consider those approaches. Whether they're executable for all the laws that tell us, we have to meet, I have no idea. But I think that we collectively, we owe it to you to try to figure this out and to get all the alternatives we can on the table and to consider them. The big challenge that we've got in that regard is time. If we get funding, as some are projecting that we might, then we may not have the time to fully consider those ideas before we go above 55 feet. So we're going to have to work through all those friction points, but the failure of imagination is the greatest failure we can have, and I'm committed to trying to overcome that with you. Thank you,
Good.
Mr.
Thank you
Hall.
very much.